She is lying flat against frozen ground, and she is not moving. She has not moved in 4 hours. The snow beneath her melted from body heat and refroze into a thin alashov pressed against her stomach. She cannot feel her fingers. She does not care. Through the 4-power scope of her Mosin neck watches a man 270 meters away eat a piece of bread. He chews slowly. He is not thinking about anything dangerous. He has no reason to. He does not know she is there. Nobody ever does. That is the point. It is the winter of 1941. Somewhere in the rubble of Sevastopol, a city being methodically destroyed by the largest siege artillery in human history, a 25-year-old history student from Ukraine has already killed 309 people. The German command hunting her has issued classified orders to remove her from the battlefield. They have failed. They will keep failing. Not because she is fast. Not because she is fearless. Because she is patient in a way that most human beings are not capable of sustaining. And because the last thing her enemies expect in that position, holding that rifle, making those calculations, is someone who looks like her. That is the last mistake they make. Before the war, she was not remarkable. Not in any way her neighbors could see. Lyudmila Pavlichenko studied medieval history at Kiev University. The wars of dead Cossack commanders, battles settled in the 1600s, blood long dried into footnotes. She had a son. She was working on a doctoral thesis about Bohdan Khmelnytsky. On weekends, she went to the Osoaviakhim marksmanship range, while her colleagues treated it like a hobby. She did not treat it like a hobby. On June 22, 1941, German tanks crossed the Soviet border. The thesis stopped mattering. She volunteered at the Odessa recruitment office the same week. The officer behind the desk looked up at her and told her what they were telling all the women. Nursing roles. She told him she was a trained sniper. He looked at her the way men in offices look at young women when they have already decided not to believe them. She did not argue with him. She asked for a rifle and a target and walked outside. He followed her. She fired. No speech, no defiant monologue, just evidence, presented quietly to a man who had asked for it without meaning to. Odessa was not a battle, it was a closing fist. By September 1941, the city sat on the Black Sea coast, with Romanian armies pressing in from 3 directions. And the Soviet interior already cut off behind them. Supply came only by sea. The defenders were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting with the specific ferocity of people who have nowhere to go. It was here that Pavlichenko learned what a sniper actually does in a siege. Not disrupting movement, not harassing supply lines. Something more psychologically precise. She made the enemy afraid to be seen. An officer who cannot stand in the open to direct his men stops functioning as an officer. He whispers orders through intermediaries. He crouches behind walls. His men feel his fear before they understand its source. She didn't wait for targets of opportunity. She hunted specific men, officers, commanders, and eventually the counter-snipers the Germans dispatched to find her, trained specialists, men with patience and records of their own. She fought 36 of these duels. She won all 36. When Odessa fell in October and the Red Army evacuated by sea, her confirmed kill count stood at 187. She was transferred to Sevastopol. Sevastopol was worse. Sevastopol was not a siege. It was an erasure. The Germans brought the Schwerer Gustav, an 800mm railway gun requiring its own Luftwaffe fighter screen just to protect it while it fired. Each shell weighed 7 tons. The fortifications it targeted were 3 kilometers away. The sound alone, soldiers reported, felt like the sky breaking. Inside this, Pavlichenko worked. She could not outgun what was being used against her city. So she thought differently. She rigged a second rifle, positioned several meters from where she actually lay, with a length of string threaded to the bolt. At intervals, she would move it. The barrel would catch sunlight, the position would breathe just enough to look inhabited. German counter-snipers would find it. They would settle in. They would wait for the shot that confirmed the position. She was already watching them, not reacting to the battlefield, constructing it, deciding in advance what her opponent would see, where he would look, and what he would do when he saw it. Then waiting, still, elsewhere, patient, for him to perform the mistake she had already written for him. He always did. A trained German sniper might wait 90 minutes for a shot. She waited 8 hours. This was not a personality trait. It was not courage in any romantic sense. It was a discipline built across years in the Osoaviakhim program, refined through months of combat until it became less a skill than a physical fact about her, the way a callus is a fact about a hand. She had trained herself to lower her heart rate, to breathe at controlled intervals, to make her body so still, for so long that it stopped registering as a human presence to anyone watching. A soldier in her unit once crawled forward to check if she was alive. She had been motionless, in a shell crater long enough that he genuinely did not. No, he reached the crater. She was alive. She did not look up. The medical staff who treated her 4 wounds, shrapnel, none of them clean, none of them minor, described someone whose level of focus control looked, from the outside, like the absence of normal fear responses. It was not the absence. It was the management of it. She had decided somewhere in Odessa or before that fear would not be given a vote, not eliminated, governed. There is a difference. In her line of work, it was everything. Somewhere in the German command structure, a report arrived, then another, each one verified, each one describing the same thing: officers eliminated at range, counter-snipers dispatched and not returning, positions compromised by a shooter who left no recoverable pattern. The field reports were accurate. The paperwork was clean. The numbers were not in dispute. And yet, the captured documents that survived the war refer to her not by name but by the transliterated Russian word for sniper, with a grammatical suffix denoting female gender, a small linguistic marker, unremarkable in Russian. Apparently, to several German officers reading these reports in the summer of 1942, it was not unremarkable at all. They underlined it. Not once. In multiple documents. As though the underlining was an attempt to make the word yield something the word refused to give. Some explanation, some error, some alternative reading that would make the conclusion acceptable. There was no alternative reading. The conclusion was correct. A 24-year-old history student from Ukraine had killed 309 of their men and survived every specialist they sent to stop her. They underlined the word. It didn't help. Think about what 309 actually means. Not the number, the moments. 309 individual instances in which a man, an officer, a commander, a trained specialist, allowed himself for just a second to feel safe, to stand upright, to step into the open, to believe. In that particular way, humans believe things when nothing has gone wrong yet, that nothing was about to. Each time, he was wrong, and the effect didn't end with him. An officer who cannot stand in the open stops functioning as an officer, he whispers. He delegates through intermediaries. He directs from cover, in fragments, with the particular hesitation of a man who has begun to understand that being seen carries a cost he cannot calculate. His men feel this before they understand it. Uncertainty moves through a unit like water through cracked stone, slowly, then everywhere. 309 times, that process began. What the record does not contain is harder to look at. The number of German snipers who came for her first, who found a position, settled in, waited, and did not come back, nobody counted them. The duels she won left no separate tally, 309 confirmed, everything else, unmeasured, which is its own kind of testimony. In June 1942, the Red Army made a calculation. Pavlichenko alive and speaking was worth more than Pavlichenko alive and shooting. She was pulled from the front. Not defeated, not wounded beyond return, simply extracted and sent west, United Kingdom first, then Canada, then the United States. She slept in the Lincoln bedroom. Eleanor Roosevelt had insisted. The American leg of the tour brought the journalists, and the journalists brought their questions. One of them asked her, in front of a crowd, whether women serving at the front were permitted to use cosmetics. She looked at him for a long moment. The room waited. The answer she gave was not gentle, and it did not need to be. But the chapter that matters inside this chapter is quieter than that exchange. Eleanor Roosevelt saw her immediately. Not the uniform, not the number, not the propaganda value the Red Army had carefully packaged. She saw the person. She invited her to stay. She asked real questions and listened to the answers. In a tour full of rooms that couldn't reconcile what she looked like with what she had done, Roosevelt was the single exception. No disbelief, no underlines, just recognition, extend without ceremony from one serious woman to another. Chicago, a microphone, thousands of people who came to see a curiosity. She stood at the podium in her Red Army uniform, the medals on her chest that she had not sought, and did not perform the flat, unhurried expression of someone who has already decided what she is going to say and knows exactly what it costs. She did not warm up. She did not thank anyone for having her. She did not explain who she was or what she had done, because by then they knew, or thought they did, which is not the same thing. She looked at the crowd. Then she spoke. "Gentlemen, I am 25 years old, and I have already killed 309 fascist occupants. Don't you think, gentlemen, that you have been hiding behind my back for too long? One moment of silence. Not confusion, not offense. Something closer to the specific stillness that happens when a room full of people realizes, simultaneously, that they have just been told the truth by someone who paid for the right to say it. Then they erupted. She did not smile. She did not need to. The verdict had been delivered. The evidence had been presented since June 1941. The room had finally heard it. She never went back to the front. The Red Army had made another calculation, and this one was final. She spent the remainder of the war teaching, passing her methods to the women, graduating from the Central Women's School of Sniper Training, young soldiers who would carry what she had developed in Odessa and Sevastopol into the campaigns of 1943 and 1944. More than 2,000 women trained. Roughly 500 survived to see 1945. Their collective confirmed kills run into the tens of thousands. After the war, she returned to Kiev University and finished her degree. She worked as a researcher at Soviet Navy headquarters. She lived quietly. She died on October 10, 1974. She was 58. There is a postage stamp. A street in Odessa bears her name. A monument stands in Belgorod. And in the Central Museum of the Great Patriotic War in Moscow, behind glass, her rifle. The Mosin-Nagant she carried through 2 sieges, across 2 years in the most violent conflict in human history, the stock worn smooth, the scope mounting marked by hard use. Nothing ceremonial about it. It looks exactly like what it is, a plain tool picked up by a young woman in June 1941, because the alternative was to do nothing. It looks like what she did with it, which was everything.